Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today we are going to blind taste 6 Pinot Noirs, all priced around $25 from 6 different origins to see which one offers the best value at this price point. This might be the hardest task I have given my cameraman so far. I asked him to buy me several Pinot Noirs at around $25 from different countries of origin and not tell me a thing about them. You see, Pinot Noir is quite finicky grape variety, and I have always said it, if you treat Pinot Noir badly, you will get the same back, because it is unforgiving in the bottle and will reveal everything that went wrong over its journey from grape to wine. Its thin skin makes it very sensitive to whatever happens in the vineyard, be it too much sunshine or not enough. Any bug or disease can affect it badly. It can easily split or rot. It is also not a grape that adapts particularly well to a wide range of climates. Too hot and it loses its elegance and fruit purity, too cold and it tastes tart and unripe. And even when it does grow in a perfect or close to perfect environment, it usually gives lower yields than many other grape varieties. The best producers might reduce yields even further in pursuit of quality. So when we get it right, there is usually much less of that great fruit than other grapes might offer. And while other grapes might hide few flaws and shortcomings better, Pinot Noir is the opposite. It will let everyone know that it has been treated badly, but the truth is, it does not have much to hide behind. There is delicacy to it, and elegance and fragility that is very easily damaged and shows right away. Do you see where I'm going with this? Because of the work that must be invested in both the vineyard and the winery, it is very difficult to find a high-quality Pinot Noir at a lower price point. I would even argue that it is often quite difficult to find good quality Pinot Noir at premium price. I have tasted my share of 100 and 200 euro plus Pinot Noirs that have been very disappointing. I would guess that Syrah or Cabernet Sauvignon at that price are almost always safer bets. With Pinot Noir, that is simply not the case. So now imagine the pressure at the $25 price point. It is not impossible though. A great vintage can help, a talented winemaker can help. So shall we taste the wines and see if there actually is a winner here, or is $25 mark simply too little for Pinot Noir? As I said, these wines were purchased and poured by my cameraman, so outside the fact that they are all Pinot Noir and they are all around $25 price mark, I really don't know anything. Oh, I also know that they come from different origins, so I would expect to see variety of countries represented here. So let's start with wine number 1. So, of course, Pinot Noir being this thin-skinned grape variety, we do not expect deeply inky colored wines out of it. It is simply not capable of producing inky wines. So we have this palish cherry red color. And we have ripe cherry, strawberry, crushed strawberry character on the nose. Pinot Noirs usually tend to have that really red berry-driven flavors, and then they are riper, if we are in warmer climate, and then they can get towards, sour cherries, cranberries, and red currant when we are moving towards cooler climates. There is a hint of smokiness and earthiness to this wine as well, so I would expect aging for a short period of time in oak, maybe even, 10-15% new. But overall, it is mostly dominated by quite ripe fruit profile, so let's taste it. So we do have that elevated, juicy acidity, but it is not tart. We have really ripe fruit profile on the palate as well. It is kind of mirroring whatever we felt on the nose. Really delicate, finely grained tannin texture, light body, and overall quite open and jolly wine. It is my first wine today, and it is early day. So maybe the reason why I feel a bit of that warmth, a bit of that alcohol on the palate is due to the fact that it is the very first wine and my palate is still very sensitive. But overall, I think it is really beautiful wine. It delivers this nicely ripe fruit profile and it has good enough elegance and finesse to it. I will give this wine 90 points. Let's move to wine number 2. All right, color-wise, it seems slightly paler than the first wine was, but on the nose, it offers a bit more, almost like more of that earthiness, that Earl Grey tea character as well. While in wine 1, we felt a lot of those fruity flavors, you know, those raspberries and strawberries and sweet cherries. This one is more smoky, more earthy, more forest floor-like. And if we do feel a hint of strawberry, it is 2 days ago harvested strawberry. If we do feel a hint of raspberry, it is more like raspberry or cooked raspberry character. Let's taste it. So on the palate, I think this wine shows similar acidity level than the wine 1, but here the acidity is not as masterfully covered with the fruit flavors, with the fruit characters. The tannins are not particularly high, but there's slight rusticity towards them. This wine almost seems more awkward on the palate, and I kind of miss those fruity flavors. When I am enjoying Pinot Noir, I want to have that delicacy of fruit, you know, both on the nose and on the palate, and wine 1 was showing it, while wine 2, well, maybe now that I was talking bad about it, it was like, okay, here you have some few fruits. But overall, that slight rusticity to the tannin texture cuts the aftertaste shorter. So I will give this wine 89 points. Let's move to wine number 3. All right, so wine number 3 actually shows more color than the previous wines. And when you smell it, there's also more power on the nose here. When we talk about Pinot Noir, we usually do not talk about power. We talk about elegance and lightness and delicacy. So power here seems almost interesting descriptor. We do have those raspberries and strawberries and cherries, but they're definitely darker. They're sun-kissed. It almost feels that they have seen quite a lot of sunshine. There's a hint of smokiness and earthiness to it. There is note of, I don't know, like rose stems. Hint of floral character for sure. Let's taste it. Interesting wine, maybe because it follows wine 1 and wine 2, which had that elevated acidity. This wine almost seems, you know, lacking in acidity and lacking in freshness in a way. Let me taste it again. Let me taste this wine again. It is very interesting, this wine, because when I had it on the palate, you know, when you taste it and you concentrate on it, you don't necessarily feel the acidity as refreshing, but when you spit the wine out, you start to feel the saliva coming back. And for me, that usually is an indicator of elevated acidity, but could this be due to the fact of elevated alcohol or tannin? Yes, and now that slightly smoky character is overpowering the fruit delicacy. I personally don't necessarily find this wine that exciting for my own palate. I will give this wine 88 points. Let's move to wine number 4. This wine has the most beautiful color. It is, of course, lightly colored wine, almost pale, but it looks so fragile. You almost want to hug it. it has more sour fruit flavors. Like I almost feel that pink rhubarb, you know, red currant. There is some delicate floral characteristics to this wine as well. Some of those dark blue, you know, spring blossom characters. It is quite inviting. You do feel those tart red berries, but they seem ripe. They seem ripe, so you know that there might be that explosion of, you know, acidity and flavors on the palate. Let's taste it and see whether or not it's true. Well, I do think that the acidity here is elevated. It offers that juiciness and refreshment to the fruit. It is really medium-bodied, maybe, you know, medium minus bodied wine, but there's quite a lot of happening on the nose and the palate. There is fragility, something that we discussed in the introduction about this wine. And when I was tasting it, one thing that I quite enjoyed was the tannin texture. It was not as fine as maybe in wine 1, and maybe it felt somewhat similar in its grippy way, in its textural style to wine 2 and 3. But it had more elegance to the tannin. It definitely didn't have that coarseness. You know, it was looking quite well or adding quite good texture or structure to this wine, to the delicate fruit. Yeah, it smells of rhubarb quite intensely. I do enjoy the mid palate of this wine here. It is filled with all those, you know, juicy red berries. It does not have the longest aftertaste though. Of course, we cannot expect it all, but I will give this wine 91 points. I did enjoy it quite a lot, or maybe it was a great step up from the previous two. Let's move to wine number 5. All right, another pale colored red wine. That's nice. Yes, when I smell Pinot Noir, I want to have those delicate red berries or berries in general, that fruity flavors. You know, I have been telling you this through all the tasting, and it seems to me that at this price level, we do not necessarily always get that delicacy of fruit. And here as well, you kind of have that smoked strawberry, raspberry on the background, but overall, there is something missing. There is something overtaking, like here in this case, there is element of greenness, element of stemminess, and that is fine because Pinot Noir often can be made with stem inclusion, you know, whole bunches. But it has to have enough fruit to support those other elements as well. And sometimes it could be the case that either oak or stemminess or whatever we have done with the wine just takes over that fragile fruit profile. Well, we do have juicy acidity, and this wine definitely shows more body than the previous wines. There's a bit more structure. I do feel the warmth of alcohol here, however, and I will not be as kind with this wine because it is a 5th wine. So I have tasted 4 wines before it. So my palate by now should used to the alcohol feeling. And if on the aftertaste, it is not the fruit that lingers, but it is the warmth and maybe slight bitterness of the alcohol that lingers, I am not the greatest fan. Plus, what was interesting, this wine almost had that sweetness to the fruit on the mid palate, which probably made it a bit more bigger and bolder than it actually was. I will give this wine 89 points. Let's move to wine number 6. All right, we do have another quite pale colored Pinot Noir here in our glass. On the nose, we have quite a lot of smoky character, tobacco leaf, Earl Grey tea. We do have slightly crushed strawberries that have been crushed and left for 2-3 days. There's some hint of oxidation, some, maybe cooked element of those berries as well. Somewhere there in the background, the delicacy of Pinot Noir is hiding. The acidity in this specific wine is elevated and juicy and absolutely refreshing. It definitely stands out outside of the fruit, while I personally usually prefer when acidity is part of the fruit and nothing really stands, alone in the wine. But what is interesting in this specific wine, I would say it has the most prominent tannin texture. It is chalky because here in these wines, the tannin was more, towards the lower side, but here you could feel the tannin texture almost taking over your palate, but not dominating, but more just adding that texture throughout your tongue and your gums and teeth. And it has that really finely grained character of, chalk. It is, however, the tannin and acidity that lingers on the palate. I don't feel that much of fruit on aftertaste. So I will give this wine 89 points. All right, you guys, now it is time to reveal the wines, and we will start with the lowest score wine, which was wine number 3 with 88 points. This is Whitehaven Pinot Noir Marlborough, New Zealand. I am really surprised because I usually enjoy Pinot Noir from New Zealand. I think there is fruit purity to it. There is almost that crystalline character to wines. Now you're showing more fruit than previously. It doesn't really matter. Let's move to the wine number 2, which I think I gave 89 points. All right, that is interesting. Terlan, Cantina Terlano, Tradition Pinot Noir, Alto Adige. So we are actually in Italy, and it is interesting because I personally do not associate Pinot Noir with Italy or Italy with Pinot Noir, in this specific case Pinot Nero, but I don't think it was that terrible. All right, this is so interesting. Of course, if we are moving towards warmer climates, then one way to reduce the heat impact is move up in elevation. And this is exactly what has happened here with this Pinot Noir. I wonder why they say Pinot Noir. It's Pinot Nero in Italy. Okay. Anyway, so in this case, it definitely has been grown at higher elevation. Why I don't think that Alto Adige is necessarily the greatest terroir for Pinot Noir is because in Alto Adige, you can easily mature Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Syrah grape varieties. And I have back at my home great examples of Bordeaux blends. So it is a region with quite high solar presence, and you have to be really careful with Pinot Noir site selection. So, shall we move to the wine number 5, which I gave also 89 points? Yeah, Central Coast Calera Pinot Noir. This producer actually is quite known with their single vineyard Pinot Noirs. They are really highly regarded wines. In my mind, when I was quietly thinking where these wines could be coming from, I did have a question mark. Is this United States? Because of that sweetness of fruit on the mid palate. It is quite interesting that even such highly regarded producer will still reach for that fruit sweetness instead of delicacy in their wines. It has 14.5% alcohol. I do think I was describing alcohol in this wine as well. Yeah, I guess it is around $25, so it makes sense, you know, and as I told you, Pinot Noir is quite finicky grape variety. And for $25 price point, which for Pinot Noir is relatively low, we, of course, cannot expect ich and ach and wows in our glasses. All right, so let's move to wine number 6, which was also 89 points. Okay, Domaine Nico, Valle di Uco. Okay, so this one is from Argentina. Wow, and if I am reading this label correctly, it is Pinot Noir grown in really high elevation, so around 1,120 meters above sea level. Uco Valley is really well known for its high elevation Malbec, and it is area where grapes see a lot of sunshine, but because of the high elevation, you do have these cool nights. So this was interesting. I have never have guessed that in this selection I would have Argentinian Pinot Noir. It is not the grape that you directly associate with Argentina, not usually. Okay. All right, so first wine that I tasted, I actually quite enjoyed, and it was 90 points. So let's reveal it. I wonder if we are having Pinot Noir from Burgundy. I would guess it would be really difficult to find Burgundy Pinot Noir at $25 mark. And if there is one, then it might be coming from larger producer. I did not think that this was Burgundy, and it's not. This is Villard, okay, Casablanca Valley. So we are in Chile. Wow. You know, sometimes I think that Chilean Pinot Noirs can have some of that greenness, but this is really pure fruit-driven red wine. And we did start with a good wine, I think, and this is so interesting, Casablanca Valley. All right, so we are in the coastal area of Chile where we have that cool influence coming from the ocean. And I think I told you in the beginning, we cannot really grow high quality Pinot Noir in super hot places. So in this case, you know, going higher up in elevation works, or you know, finding areas closer to the sea or closer to the ocean where we have that, you know, cooler influence coming, and maybe moderating in a way the heat of the day, as we have in this case. All right, so let's move to wine number 4 that received the highest points from me, which was 91. We do have Pinot Noir from Burgundy, and yes, that's true. You don't necessarily need to go to these large producers, négociants, although I don't really know this producer particularly that well, but we can actually go higher up in elevation, as I told you before. You know, Hautes-Cotes de Nuits is around 300, 400 meters above sea level. We are further away towards cooler area of Burgundy, which while ago was not capable of reaching full maturity. You know, 20, 30 years ago, we had more fruit trees over there than probably we had vines. But now these areas of Burgundy are starting to show better and better quality. Of course, it is expertise. It is also cooler climate. And I thought it had that, you know, that tart fruit character to it, the delicacy to it. I really did enjoy this wine, and secretly in my mind, I was asking myself, is this Burgundy? I doubt that it could be Burgundy, because at that price level, it would be difficult to find a good quality Burgundy, of course. But yes, it makes absolutely sense to move just, you know, closer to the forest. I think this was quite interesting tasting, and we did not have really high, you know, ups and downs when it comes to quality. But there were a few wines that shined beautifully, and for me it was the Burgundy. I have been feeling somewhat offended with Burgundy for a while now, because those beautiful wines, they are with every vintage becoming more difficult for me to reach. For me, it makes no sense to spend so much on wine outside of making beautiful video out of it, interesting for you, interesting for me. But the truth is that Burgundy knows how to make beautiful Chardonnay, beautiful Pinot Noir. They are one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to knowing and understanding their grapes, their terroir. So in this tasting, I guess it showed. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please let me know in the comment section below your finds for great Pinot Noir around $20–25 mark. And I have made a similar video tasting Pinot Noirs at around $50 mark, so make sure to watch that video next.